Hi, we humans all need to eat to stay alive, but have you ever considered what would happen to a person if they suddenly stopped eating? That was exactly the case with Yeong-hye in the three-part novel The Vegetarian, written by renowned Korean author Han Kang. The first part of the book is set in Seoul and takes the perspective of the character Mr. Chung. Mr. Chung is an average businessman who shares his relatively loveless yet peaceful marriage with his wife Yeong-hye, whom he also describes as incredibly average. Yeong-hye has always been a woman of few words, and the only thing peculiar about her is her occasional refusal to wear a bra because of its discomfort. Mr. Chung first noticed Yeong-hye's changes when she threw away all the meat in the fridge and refused to let any meat inside the household, caused by a vivid dream she had of her killing and eating an animal in a brutal way. As time passes, she loses weight and refuses to have sex with him for the reason he smells like meat. Their conflict intensifies when she refuses to wear a bra and eat meat during a meal with Mr. Chung's boss, causing Mr. Chung to call her family for intervention. Frustrated, Mr. Chung rapes Yeong-hye on several occasions. The family eventually has a gathering at In-hye's apartment, where Yeong-hye's father strikes Yeong-hye out of frustration for her silent refusal to eat meat, after which she attempts suicide by slitting her wrist, and ends up in the hospital. She escapes from the ward and is found on a bench completely naked, with a dead white bird with bloody bite marks on it in her hand. The second part is named the Mongolian mark and happens 2 years after the first chapter. For people who don't know, the Mongolian mark is defined as a benign, flat, congenital birthmark with wavy borders and an irregular shape. In normal lingo, it is a flat, blue-gray piece of skin on the back above the buttocks, and they usually fade within a few years after birth. This chapter is narrated by Yeong-hye's brother-in-law, who is In-hye's husband. He is a video artist, while In-hye is a manager at a cosmetics store. The brother-in-law has dreams of men and women with painted flowers having sex because In-hye once mentioned that Yeong-hye still had her Mongolian mark. He starts to obsess over Yeong-hye, dreaming of filming him and her having sex. His growing lust leads him to have sex with In-hye after returning home, pretending that In-hye is Yeong-hye, leaving his wife in tears. At this time, Yeong-hye has been discharged from the psychiatric hospital and lives alone. The brother-in-law proposes a nude painting session with Yeong-hye, and she agrees. After filming, he reviews the tapes and cuts them into a video. However, he wants to film more, so he calls a friend called Jae to model with Yeong-hye. After learning of the sensuality of the film, Jae declines even though he has already been painted with the flowers. The brother-in-law decides to model himself, so he asks a painter friend to help paint his body and finishes the film with Yeong-hye. They have sex after, and they fall asleep. The brother-in-law forgets the camcorder on the table, which In-hye discovers after coming to visit Yeong-hye in the morning, and she thinks they're insane and calls the psychiatric hospital to take them away. The third chapter takes the perspective of In-hye and is called Flaming Trees. 2 years later, Yeong-hye now lives in a psychiatric hospital, refusing to eat entirely. She refuses injection through her nose, and hooking her up to an IV would require a complicated surgery to insert it into her arteries. In-hye's memories float back to when Yeong-hye ran away and pretended to be a tree in the mountains, telling her that the trees were like brothers and sisters to her and that she only needs sunlight and water to survive. She also thinks of her husband, remembering him as an elusive ghost whom she could never be sure loved her or not. He turned out not to be mentally ill and had not contacted her since, apart from a call to ask about Ji-woo, their son. In-hye feels both sorry and jealous for her sister, for being able to shrug off all social constraints. She cannot convince Yeong-hye to eat, but the inhumane injection of tranquilizer that the psychiatric hospital gives her sister makes her consider that it's her body, she can treat it however she wants. In the ambulance on the way to the general hospital, In-hye confesses to Yeong-hye that she has dreams too, but that at some point a person has to wake up. As they drive, In-hye sees a forest of trees glinting in the sunlight. She looks at them, as if waiting for an answer, as if protesting against something. The book was definitely a very strange book to read. I really enjoyed the vivid imagery and pacing by the author, which made it a very memorable and enjoyable read. I would give it a 7 out of 10. It was difficult to be certain that you had grasped the central message on the first read, but some core themes are very apparent. From a feminist perspective, Yeong-hye's refusal to eat meat and her eventual rejection of all food can be seen as a radical act of defiance against the control over the bodily autonomy of women. Mr. Chung's description of Yeong-hye as incredibly average and expectation to eat meat at dinner with his boss reveals the societal expectations placed on women that are set by men. The idea is enforced by her gradual refusal to wear a bra as a way of announcing the reclamation of her body. Eventually, this silent rebellion leads to an attempt to regain power by the male oppressors, specifically Mr. Chung's rape and Yeong-hye's father's violence, displaying the strictness of their culture and emphasizing the lack of bodily autonomy women possess. This leads the reader to question the strict obedience expected from women, which strips people of their individuality and was never properly justified for, except saying that this is the proper way to do things. In the last scene of the first part, the author paints a striking scene where a white bird with bloody bite marks appears on Yeong-hye, who is found naked on a bench outside the psychiatric ward. The bird can be seen as a symbol for Yeong-hye herself. The bloody bite marks suggest an act of violence, mirroring the physical and psychological violence inflicted on her by Mr. Chung and her father. The bird itself connotates a fragile and traditionally innocent creature, which parallels Yeong-hye's own vulnerability, and its fate is similar to hers in that it gets crushed by a greater force. The second part, Mongolian Mark, is much more confusing than the first part. From a feminist lens, the obsession with the Mongolian Mark by the brother-in-law is a fetishization of Yeong-hye's body, objectifying her instead of treating her as a person with agency. His insistence on transforming her body into a canvas and filming it can be connected with Laura Mulvey's concept of the male gaze, where women are positioned as objects of visual pleasure for male viewers. However, the chapter also invites a post-humanist reading, and it is here that the book first starts to blur the boundaries between human and non-human. Post-humanism seeks to decentralize human exceptionalism, emphasizing the connectedness with non-human identities like nature. The Mongolian Mark is a biological trace produced by birth, a process that all creatures undergo in some form, setting it in a liminal position between humans and the universal natural processes, suggesting continuity between her body and the non-human world. The brother-in-law's idea to paint her body with flowers furthers this connection, emphasizing her identity as a hybrid entity, part human and part nature. However, the brother-in-law's lust perverts this post-human potential, turning Yeong-hye into a fetishized object for self-serving rather than a harmonious connection with a non-human idea. In the last part, Flaming Trees, Yeong-hye's complete refusal to eat and her assertion that she only needs sunlight and water to survive marks her ultimate rejection of human societal norms, positioning her as a figure who seeks to become plant-like. This transformation completely aligns with post-humanist ideas that question human exceptionalism. In-hye's reflection that it's her body, she can treat it however she wants, highlights a reluctant acknowledgement of Yeong-hye's autonomy, yet it is tinged with envy and sorrow as In-hye remains bound by societal constraints. The image of the forest of the trees glinting in the sunlight at the novel's end serves as a powerful metaphor for Yeong-hye's unattainable freedom, with In-hye's gaze as if waiting for an answer, suggesting an unresolved tension between conformity and liberation. Overall, the book is a very complex work to decipher, and there are many other readings that offer alternative explanations for the enigma that Han Kang leaves in The Vegetarian. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.